hello, howdy. My name's Kawaii-Pigeon, and today I'd like to talk to you about shipping. But more specifically, I'd like to talk to you about pro-ship versus anti-ship. Why? Because of the Warrior Cats fandom, and I don't even go to this fandom even if I'm a furry. So let's get some things clear. What's pro-ship and what's anti? Pro-ship is itself a mix of multiple meanings from pro-fiction, anti-harassment, anti-Puritan, but that's just the gist of it. The definition I would really put forward as pro-ship is somebody who is flesh and blood should not be harassed or threatened for the fictional content they produce or engage in, regardless of that fiction's content. An easy and to-the-point definition, isn't it? And if only it was. But what about the other side? What does anti mean in regards to shipping? Antis tend to be pro-harassment, pro-Puritan, fan police, moral police, and pixel police is the gist of what they seem to be. What I would say as the definition of a anti is, if a subject is taboo, it doesn't deserve to exist. If it's dangerous in real life, then it shouldn't exist in fiction. This can range from siblings kissing to age gaps that are subject to individual scrutiny. So where's the issue in this? Well, antis don't know how to pick a target, nor do they care about said target all that much, nor do they care what a pro-shipper is. To them, anyone who isn't with them is against them, and themselves a predator. Say a pro-shipper is a teen. They love drawing character X who is an adult and them. Or they like the character they project on and draw them and X kissing. Or they just like character X and character Y and they want them to smooch. Antis will call that teen a predator, and that they're the Schrodinger's cat. They're both groomed and brainwashed, and a threat to everyone. A victim and a victimizer. And all that teen was trying to do was make two characters smooch. That crime of making a character smooch can lead to countless antis in their inbox or DMs suggesting graphic threats, wishes for harm, gore, self-deleting bait, doxing, and the whole 10 yards. For pixels that mean nothing. Fictional content that means nothing in the grand scheme of things. And what's a teen or a fellow minor to them? It's about as bad for adults who commit the crime of making taboo media and throw in a few accusations of them being a predator. This is all divorced from the fact that not all pro-shippers are the same. I myself am the category of I don't care what you make or what you like, nobody deserves death threats over it. Some pro-shippers like taboo media, for one reason or another. Maybe they're coping with therapy. Maybe they just like it. Some pro-shippers are just old as hell and adopted the term over from the don't like, don't read, and the dead dove do not eat terms. Fandoms are a long thing, it's not new. The age of Star Trek with Kirk and Spock smooching, rest assured, there are plenty of older people writing odd things and making great writing fics for everyone else. These old fans are the atlas that drives modern fans today. Regardless of their stance, they all share the anti-harassment sentiment, with ever so often one deciding to get down and fight antis like they tend to attack, which helps no one. But here's the thing. Pro-shippers will always pounce on the one that fights dirty. Anti or fellow pro-ship, you don't harass somebody. Antis love to dogpile and bully, framing themselves as the moral ones, up on their high horse. The funny thing about antis, they happily attack other fans, but they are strangely silent when the source of material is just as bad, worse, or, the source of the bad content they rail against. I'm going to use two fandoms here. Warrior Cats, because it annoyed me recently, is a child's media that's much more screwed up than it is, and should really have no discourse, yet it does. And the other media is one that are well acquainted with older people. I'm picking Beetlejuice for this one because I also got annoyed by it, and I'm gonna talk about it. So, Warrior Cats. That book series describing visceral births of kids, cats graphically dying, filled with blood, murdered, treachery, and the occasional sibling breeding. Oh, and xenophobia. Why do antis even like Warrior Cats is what I'm asking. The canon of the books is horrifying and I love it. I don't really consider myself a fan because my knowledge is only in passing, from what I remember from reading as a child and Google. But that stuff got pretty dark. Cats biting each other through the throat. A quick Google says a cat named Broken Star had his apprentices fight so badly that one kit was killed and didn't seem to care, making the rest apprentices. Death by dog mauling, vehicle running them over, or claws to the throat are the norm for warrior cats. And yes, of course, nobody cares about violence. It's like a coffee shop AU to Americans. Nobody cares. But what about the down and dirty of making those kits? It's far worse than you would think. Okay, so much worse, but also at the same time it's very hilarious. Because here's something that even those of us with passing knowledge of warrior cats know, is that cats hate the other clans and tend to stick heavily to their own groups. The fact that half-claned kids are basically mixed-race kids who get bullied non-stop is canon. So if mixed-clan cats are viewed with such disdain, who exactly are the parents from? Usually a singular clan, and we all know that kitty pets or domestic cats rarely ever join the clans, and they all tend to be in isolated territories, and the clans have a near consistent description of different clans having different types of builds, or fur types, or thin tails. But even from all that we have is canon, then those cats are Alabama cousins. A quick cursory check is one such pair, Fern Cloud and Dusty Pelt. A passing Google confirms it is that Fern Cloud's mother is Brindleface, and Brindleface's brother is Dusty Pelt. You heard that right, Fern Cloud's been making babies with her uncle. Now, why are antis in this fandom again? Cats have no concept of family. They may even prefer non-blood relatives, but a cat's gonna breed, and it's why breeders separate the boys before they get their sisters pregnant. But Pigeon, I hear you say, these are just anthropomorphized cats. It doesn't matter. They're meant to be like people. Well, what about Nala and Simba from The Lion King? Those two are half related, and they have kids. Don't forget, in the cut content, Scar, her uncle, originally hits on Nala. Anthropomorphization comes for you all, but cats don't care. The writers don't care. They get enough crap to do, and I'm sure the writers of Warrior Cats have their hands full with plot, and not nightmarishly long family trees that twist and boink into each other. And also boink each other. So why get mad at the one independent artist or hobbyist that draws it or writes about it? Shouldn't you go after the writers that have worked on the Warrior Cats series? No? How come? They're the ones marketing the books to kids that anti-so claim is damaging and normalizing all these gross things, and yet they support the marketing? They support buying these books? Why not boycott them? I'm being very hyperbolic, but also not really. If you feel so strongly that something shouldn't be made, why are you supporting things that have it in canon? Is it because it's easier? Is it easier that it feels like somebody has done actual activism by just bullying people and putting on a pretty hat about it? But okay, let's look at another fandom, another place on the internet. Actually, I'm going to talk about two of them because they're kind of similar in the respects that there are kids in these fandoms, and ones have been so saturated that the media content has bend backwards for them, and the other is just kind of screwed up. Beetlejuice, FNAF. Five Nights at Freddy's is a game about children being murdered and stuffed into animatronic robots who then possess said robots and go kill other people. How that became a thing that kids flocked to, I'll never know, but I'm probably going to thank MatPat for that. There's no shortage of antis who go from shipping the robots is wrong because they're minors, or possessed by minors, so shipping them is wrong anyway. To antis who get in a fit and call people cringe for making Monty and Freddy kiss. It's all just very hand-wavy. They're ghosts, they're kid ghosts, and you shouldn't ship any of the characters at all, regardless of, say, Freddy being more adult-leaning in the security breached video game. Okay, but what about Beetlejuice? Let's take a closer look at that particular media. And while I say Beetlejuice is primarily adult content, since it was back when the original aired in, 1988. Beetlejuice is older than my aunts and uncles and me. Beetlejuice is about a couple named Adam and Barbara who died in the film and are met with Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. His name's pronounced differently than when you read it. Said man is dead, crude, perverted, a menace, and a murderer. Yada yada yada. Adam and Barbara accidentally get exercise, and Beetlejuice tries what? To marry Lydia, the teen protagonist, so that he can stay in the mortal realm and cause chaos. This is also just a summary from the wiki, but Beetlejuice the undead, arguably a demon, wants to marry a teen. Wow, so problematic. Granted, Barbara disrupts the ceremony and stops Lydia from being a young bride, and happy endings all around. There have been more movies, cartoon shows, a really, really good musical featuring Alex Brightman. I love you, dude. Kissy kissy. Mwah mwah. And it's been a beloved media that's lasted well into 2022. But it really isn't kids. It isn't really for kids. Especially those that are from super religious households. Which again makes me wonder why antis or minors are involved with the fandom at all. The songs slap, of course, and far be it from me to age-restrict music or media history, but there should be some expectation that the majority of adults for media as old as Beetlejuice should be adults, and not have to worry about kids invading it. Invading is a bit of a harsh word, but that's what I'm using, and I miss pre-titty Tumblr ban. Anyway, the gist of Beetlejuice and FNAF's relevancy to antis is that they shouldn't be surprised when dark adult content pops up from a media that has dark and adult themes. Hell, we got Five Nights at boys. I think we can all admit that there was a lot of thirsty people in FNAF before it became a kiddie play palace. There will, and there will always be, adult content in fandoms, regardless of the origins. One shouldn't be surprised about it, and if you may be disgusted, or annoyed, or irritated, or maybe you're ambivalent to it being there. But I don't need to tell you that. What you can always use are filters, block buttons, mute, back buttons, all the tools you can use to avoid things you find unsavory. So why can't antis be bothered? An anti would argue that they are drowning in underage fics, that they can't go one page into a respective tag, subject, or search engine, maybe even a page on Archive of Our Own, without finding something so triggering that it puts them into mental breakdowns that it shouldn't exist. And I don't know about you, the average person, but for me, I don't see it. Hell, you have to get mighty specific for some fics. The only fics recently that I can remember finding that was disturbing to me was a Pokemon one that involved literal crap, and I backed out of there like a bat out of hell. My biggest gripe is that they didn't tag it accurately, but should I get a say about it not existing? Remember fanfiction.net. How they decided no sex was allowed, that they then shifted to okay, no gay/content is allowed, to no gays are allowed at all because they are inherently sexual, and so then it evolved into no LGBTQ+ is allowed. Censorship is a slippery slope, and I always like to phrase it like this. Would you want your worst enemy allowed to dictate what you can and can't post? What you can and can't draw, what you can and cannot write. Antis like to pretend that what they do helps people, that they're fighting some kind of fight for morality and purity. They're the modern-day Catholic Crusades. But humans have been making messed up stuff since the beginning of time, and antis can't change that. Antis who cry and scream and throw up because Loki gets shipped with his female counterpart for self-cest, an ideological argument that means less than nothing, over if it's moral to ship with a clone or an alternate you from a different dimension. My answer to that is who cares, it's basically fancy jacking it as far as I'm concerned. Or Throki. I get it, they were raised as brothers, but they're not. Like fine, you may be uncomfortable with the idea, most people would be uncomfortable with the idea of those two together. But who are you to say no, to even say it's wrong? Thorky fics don't deserve to exist. Well, it's icky and it grosses me out. Let me present the whole Greek pantheon. We have Zeus Thunder Dick himself, whose wife Hera is his sister. Off to a great start with Zeus being the gatherer of so much non-con, he might as well be the god of that too. And that's just humans. Zeus doesn't care if you got 2 legs or 4, and sometimes shapeshifts into animals to have his way with mortal women. Do I even have to go on? But that's just Greeks. They love to run naked and use olive oil as lube. There's no way that other religions would. Christianity. Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel. Who do you think Cain married? If the Bible is to be believed, the human race started with a ton of inbreeding. But I hear you say there wasn't a choice. Okay, well, what about Sodom and Gomorrah? The biblical city that was so wicked God called down fire to destroy it. What's that got to do with shipping and morality? Well, do antis ever bring up the Bible? It's something that teaches moral purity and the like has tons and tons of sanctioned inbreeding. That's the thing. Lot's wife was turned into sulfur disobeying God, and pretty much the next day his 2 daughters made Lot get so drunk he fell into a stupor and proceeded to R-word the man until they got pregnant. And hey, if you're a believer, I got nothing against you. You could say it was a necessary evil, or you could just say that it's a story to be taught the importance of obeying God and Lot's daughters were an afterthought, or a necessary thing to keep the bloodline going. Stories from eons past, stories from today, explore dark thoughts. Pro-shippers acknowledge this, and most of us, well, we don't like those stories either. But we aren't about to hurt somebody or harass somebody over things that are just stories or paintings. Years pass, and morality isn't always black and white. What of siblings separated at birth, meet each other, fall in love as adults, and then find out that they're related? I don't have the answer to what they should do. The law states that it is illegal to marry your sibling and payable to 15 years in jail and a fine of $24,000. While I agree with the law, since I don't think humans should line breed, it's easy to say because I'm not in that situation. But talking about sibling marriages or really close family line breeding, let's look at the Encanto fandom. In Encanto, there is this tiny, insignificant scene that, my God, I love because it highlights Latino novellas and makes Bruno relatable, but also makes him the short-and-near shipper. You can't talk about Bruno, no, if you're an anti. Bruno's rats are his friends in entertainment. In the scene I'm talking about, they are in a little cutout board. As Bruno explains, the rats are in love, but one is the other's aunt. But she has amnesia, so she doesn't know. It's all kind of forbidden. And novellas are infamous for being so drama-filled and crazy that this novella seems pretty tamed. Maybe the rat has an evil twin somewhere waiting to snatch her man. Bruno could be classified as a pro-shipper. Of course, that word wouldn't exist in that time in Colombia, but he recognizes that relationship that he has as rats perform is not only fiction, but that it's forbidden, taboo. It shouldn't happen, but it's interesting and compelling story because of the forbiddenness sprinkled in. Also, while it's not my place to tell people to quit with the Encanto headcanons, you know that Latinos in that age, the Madu girls are like homophobic as hell, with only one of them probably trying hard not to think about not being straight. Anyway, writers that work for Disney, the happiest corporate on earth, knows that fiction is just entertainment. I've been rather long-winded, and the rise of antis has been a problem for Tumblr and Twitter ever since the dark timeline began in 2016. But I hope that we can at least realize that antis are just blowing air up their own butts. They're just trying to look good and bully others, disguising themselves as the good guys. And any pro-shippers who watch this video, stay strong and stay creative. Antis hating you don't even know you. Oh, and antis? Stop lowering and watering down serious words when you really mean you find something gross. Use the block button, use filter tools, and stop purposefully triggering yourself in some self-flagging crusade to justify snapping at others. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.